So we've been hearing about Deutsche Bank, right? Since last year, especially in the beginning of this year, Deutsche Bank has been in big trouble. I even referred to them a couple of times as dead man walking. However, why are they a dead man walking, first of all? Derivatives. What does their derivatives book look like? Whatever worse than terrible is. And quietly, they've been offloading, selling off this ugly derivatives book, so to speak. And 2/3 of it has been sold off, with a third remaining, allegedly. And that third, or I think, is over $1 trillion. Who in the hell would want to buy this weapon of financial mass destruction known as derivatives from Deutsche Bank? How about some American banks? One of which wrote the law at the end of 2014 that your Congress passed that allows the FDIC insurance to bail out banks specifically with derivatives imploding. Deutsche Bank, are you an American bank? No, you're not. That's okay. We'll take your, weapon of financial mass destruction known as derivatives, and we'll park them over here to some of our banks because they're covered under FDIC insurance. What benefit does any bank in America have taking that cesspool from Deutsche Bank? Answer, none. Zero, zilch. It does nothing. It's not like they're buying some profitable piece of Deutsche Bank. They are playing hot potato with a stinking pile of garbage. Bloomberg. JPMorgan, Goldman, said to discuss buying Deutsche Bank swaps. Interestingly, there's a more important third bank. And Bloomberg is not mentioning the third bank's name, at least in the title. JPMorgan, Goldman, said to discuss buying Deutsche Bank swaps. Now, who wrote the law at the end of 2014 that makes the FDIC insurance cover derivatives losses at banks? That would be, Citigroup. Lender looking to complete sale of 1.1 trillion swaps book. Deutsche Bank has sold about 2/3 of book since 2015. I wonder who those buyers were. Deutsche Bank, the lender exiting some trading operations, is in talks with JPMorgan Chase & Co., Goldman Sachs Group Inc., and Citigroup Inc. to sell the batches of about $1 trillion in complex financial instruments, people with knowledge of the matter said. No, let me try that again. Let me say it like it's supposed to. Is in talks with JPMorgan Chase, Goldman Sachs Group Inc., and Citigroup Inc. to sell the latest batches of about $1 trillion in complex financial instruments, also known as weapons of financial mass destruction, that will be wrecking your financial lives across the world, and especially in America, because we're the ones who are going to be buying it from them. Our banks, who are too big to fail, will be bailed out again. FDIC insurance will take care of that now. And as I'm reading this, which this was posted technically 4:22 a.m. or Eastern time. Sorry, that one was updated. Posted March 10th, 2016 at 1:50 Eastern time. Updated at 4:22 a.m. on the 11th. Today's the 13th, just so you know when I'm actually doing this video. Webbot report. Cliff I sent it to me. I just read it earlier. I'm going to be doing the update right after this video. And it talks about QE, bailout type of a thing, in essence. happening again in America. Well, we just saw it in Europe. Mario Draghi. We're going to throw the kitchen sink of QE out now. We're going to do that, see if that works. Okay, it didn't work the first time. Didn't work the second time. Didn't work the third time. Didn't work the fourth time. Let's try a fifth time. How about that? And if you think about it, if these derivatives products have to be backed up, bailed out through FDIC insurance, the amount of money in question is going to be absolutely astronomical. Deutsche Bank, based in Frankfurt, has sold about 2/3 of the portfolio of uncleared, mostly single-name credit default swaps since last year and wants to sell the rest within the next few months, according to the people who asked not to be identified, as the talks are private. The 3 U.S. banks, all too big to fail, have already purchased some of the instruments, the people said. These are instruments. Do you play it like a harmonica or a flute? Makes you wonder. Cuts outweigh investments. Deutsche Bank's planned reduction of leverage exposure at its investment banking and trading unit through 2018 eclipses the assets it expects to add to the business. Just a shocker. Deutsche Bank is withdrawing from countries, dumping unprofitable clients, and dumping unprofitable derivatives financials of mass destruction on you sorry sap U.S. taxpayers. That would be me too. And pulling out of businesses as co-chief executive officer John Cryan, 55, tries to boost profit and meet tougher capital rules after starting in July. John Cryan, it made me think of something. Pardon me while I hit you with this. I wonder if that's what people are saying to John Cryan. John, we've got trillions of dollars in derivatives products. I was crying when I met you. Now I'm dying to forget you. Get out of here. You're fired. Maybe think of Aerosmith. I want to throw that out there. He inherited a plan by his predecessor, Anshu Jain, to stop trading most credit default swaps tied to individual companies after new banking regulations made them costlier. But apparently JPMorgan, Goldman Sachs, and the writer of the FDIC insurance coverage law, Citigroup, aren't concerned about that at all. We'll take them. Why? Because the U.S. taxpayer is going to bail us out when this happens. And they know it's going to happen, which is why they're doing this. Who would buy these toxic assets? They're not assets. They're toxic. We'll buy them because the taxpayer will pay it. We're too big to fail. Eric Holder said so. Too big to fail. It will have might have global implications to the economy. So if they're that big to cause that kind of problem, we can't prosecute. Eric Holder, you should be prosecuted immediately. I bet Loretta Lynch, the takeover, I bet she'll do it. Oh, wait, Obama appointed her. Obama appointed Holder. Picks all of his people. They're all part of the club. They're not going to go after each other. Never mind. Where was I? Spokesman for Deutsche Bank, JPMorgan, Goldman Sachs, and Citigroup all declined to comment. Sorry. JPMorgan was among banks in talks to purchase more than $250 billion of the swaps, while Citigroup had already bought almost $250 billion, Bloomberg News reported in October. Now you're probably asking yourself, these were all too big to fail banks who were failing and got bailed out. Taxpayer expense, allegedly. No allegedly about it. $900 billion TARP fund, trillions created by the Federal Reserve given to them. You're probably wondering, how does each of these banks have $250 billion to just throw around right now? If they had that kind of capital, why did they need a bailout in the first place? Something doesn't seem right here, now does it? Deutsche Bank's portfolio of swaps had a gross national value of about 1 trillion euros when it began sales last year, the people said. That measure includes long and short bets and doesn't account for offsetting contracts. Before Deutsche Bank began the sales, the swaps had a leverage exposure, a metric that regulators use to measure a bank's capital requirement of about 100 billion euros under the latest rules. One of the people said. The lender said in April that it would shrink the leverage exposure of its investment banking and trading unit by as much as 150 billion euros through 2018. Credit default swaps are insurance contracts that pay out if a borrower defaults on a debt. Investors use them to speculate on the borrower's ability to repay the debt or to guard against losses on the debt. The instruments helped to fuel the 2008 credit crunch, and regulators have been trying to make them safer and less opaque. Swap shopping. Deutsche Bank's swaps are uncleared, meaning that investors trade them directly with each other rather than through one of the clearing houses that are mandatory for many trades after the crash. Europe's biggest banks will need billions of dollars to meet new rules for collateral that they must set aside when trading uncleared swaps, regulators said this week. In that case, dump them on the Americans so we can comply. It says the swaps are mostly single name, meaning that they're tied to individual companies. Creditworthiness as opposed to an index of securities, one of the people said. So instead of a pool, like mortgage-backed securities, just a pool of these turds, we don't have pools anymore. These are individual companies attached to individual and creditworthiness. So they're attached to individual companies. They're the company's creditworthiness. Who determines a company's creditworthiness? Don't laugh. Moody's, Fitch, Standard & Poor's. You know, the guys that wrote everything as AAA, beautiful, most awesome credit rating you can get. Mortgage-backed securities, adjustable rate mortgages, pile of stinking crap, AAA. So we have individual AAA creditworthiness given out by the same club rating agencies. That means it's the opposite. That means you should run for the hills. Deutsche Bank stopped trading these instruments in late 2014, the lender said then. The total size of the credit derivatives market has dropped by almost 2/3, from 33 trillion in 2008, according to the Depository Trust and Clearing Corp, the DTCC. That is also the same company that runs 55 Water Street, where all the Hurricane Sandy floodwaters flooded its vaults. They should be fireproof, they should be waterproof, but somehow it got flooded. And all of these I don't know if it's necessarily contracts, but stocks and shares, everything you can think of is stored there. And a lot of damage, they were quoted as saying, happened after the flood. First of all, how did it flood? You have there was supposedly $36 trillion worth of instruments that this company takes care of, handles, stores. And you're going to tell me your vault got flooded. Okay. And while they were cleaning it up, and I've mentioned this numerous times, a fire started and damaged some more documents. And I'm dying, and I've been waiting a few years now to find out what is going to come of that. Why did they have to destroy it? What's going to happen in the future when lawsuits start flying and they say, well, let's go look at, we can't. That's what I want to see. What are you wanting to look at specifically? So here's the interesting thing. The total size of the credit derivatives market has dropped by almost 2/3 from 33 trillion in 2008. If it dropped by 2/3, it's 11 trillion. Where's the 22 trillion? Where did it go? If the total derivatives market size dropped almost 2/3 from 33 trillion, that's 11 trillion, that means 22 trillion is somewhere. If it dropped, where the hell did it go? I'm pretty certain things just don't disappear. Or is it possible that the club, who was going to use these derivatives to destroy the world markets, economies, I'm just going to throw this out there, are they backtracking? Guys, we were going to do that. Too many people waking up. Too many governments backing out. They don't want to work with us now. Let's reverse that. Well, we can't reverse it. It's all flood the vault. Flood the vault. We can reverse it. Okay, flood the vault. Flooding the vault, sir. Flooding the vault, sir. Fire starting the vault, sir. Fire starting the vault, sir. Copy. As Deutsche Bank pulls back, other lenders are getting in, seeking to profit from a rebound in activity based on investors' fears of rising corporate defaults and instability in global markets. So then how in the hell would that make sense to get involved? Oh, let's get some derivatives. We're expecting defaults and bankruptcies. Let's get some derivatives. Derivatives are insurance on your bets. Now, if the club is going to bet against its own destruction market that it's going to cause, someone's going to have to pay for that. But again, no matter what we're talking about, there's always a buyer and always a seller. You can't have these banks just, oh, we're all going to short everything, and there not be any people calling the longs on the other side. For each short, there has to be a long. For each long, there has to be a short. So if they're expecting to make a ton of money, and they always are, but they may be expecting that these credit default swaps, insurance as they call them, can't pay for it, like AIG couldn't pay for it in 2008, and it was bailed out, so it could help pay those bankers. That would imply that another entity or entities like AIG, maybe even AIG again, will have to be bailed out to pay those bankers on their bets. It's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. I'm just giving you some ideas and thoughts on some of this, but I thought you might like that. I got a web report summary to do. Pretty interesting, and I'm going to do that right now.